Hi, welcome to part 2 on how to authentically forgive. If you haven't watched part 1, I suggest you watch that first so this makes more sense to you, and I will link that below. Now, in part 1, I talked about how us as adults forgive people, but we don't do it from a heart space. We do it from an analytical, logical mind. And that's because that's what we were taught, is to forgive people because it benefits us. So we don't do it from a heart space. We just do it as if it's the right thing to do. But what's happening, there is another part of us that doesn't want to forgive. And that part of us is from childhood. What happens as children when we feel defenseless, we feel disempowered, we may get angry, whether that's at another person or at ourselves. And then what happens, that anger turns into resentment. The anger is not expressed as a child. If it is, it's usually met with some kind of non-acceptance, sometimes severely. So we're taught to suppress the anger. So when somebody makes us feel bad, somebody hurts us, somebody makes us feel disempowered, and we are completely defenseless, we hold on to the resentment of that because we can't process the anger because we're not expressing it. So what's not expressed is going to get suppressed. Now, once it's suppressed, it becomes like an energetic pocket of energy that holds on to the emotions. And those emotions are anger and resentment. And the thoughts are, I feel defenseless, I feel powerless, I can't do anything about it. So the emotions are trapped in the body and the thoughts are trapped in the mind. And they're feeding off of each other. Now, as an adult, somebody triggers that old wound, that resentment, and that resentment now goes toward the person in the now time. As an adult, we do logically understand, and also from our wise minds, we know that when people do us wrong as adults, and we're an adult now, and if we've done our healing work and spiritual work, and we have the knowledge and the wisdom to know better, then we would know that they were only projecting onto us their own inner pain, or they were in a place where they weren't loving themselves, and that just showed up and you were there. And then we can understand that on this beautiful heart compassionate level, and we'll be able to forgive them. And even if we got upset, we can forgive ourselves because in that moment we forgot how valuable we are. And it shouldn't last a long time, but if you're still holding on to something somebody did in your adult life and you can't let it go, it's because there's probably some kind of resentment that you still have from childhood. So the way to stop getting triggered as an adult is to address the anger and resentment that is now trapped in your body. And it's very normal for a child to suppress emotions because they didn't have the tools and they didn't have the coping mechanisms, they didn't have the resources to process the anger, and they weren't allowed to express it. So it had to go somewhere. So it's going to be trapped in the body. Now, as you grow up, you still have this trapped energy. And that's what's being triggered in your adult life. So when somebody hurts you in your current time as an adult, it's very hard for you to forgive because the child part in you is resentful for them not showing up for you in a kind of compassionate, loving way, which is what you wanted as a child. But as a child, you didn't have any resources to process the pain and the resentment and the anger, or you weren't allowed to, or you didn't know how, so that gets suppressed. So if you're still holding on to it as an adult, when somebody hurts you as an adult and you still feel angry at them, then chances are you're not fully forgiving, right? And you can't, because there's that child part in you that still has to be healed. So the best way to do that, if you don't want to do, or you don't feel you need to do deep inner child work, and you could do this on your own, then just imagine that you're speaking to your inner child. If you're visual, visualize it. You could visualize that you're in a chair and you're facing your child part in the other chair, and you're explaining to them that the people in their lives, whether it was a primary caregiver like a parent, or if it was a teacher, or it was a family member, or it was a bully at school, or a neighbor, whoever it is, that made you feel defenseless and powerless, tell that child part of you that that was coming from their hurt self, and that it had nothing to do with the child, and that the child had nowhere to put those emotions. So they had to hold on to them and just say, it's okay to forgive yourself now for not realizing that you are a valuable, beautiful, human, and divine soul. And then forgive yourself as an adult for holding on to it for so long, with the knowing that you had no other choice, and that it's okay to forgive yourself now. Because really, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And if you've never heard of that before, what that really means is the reason we have to forgive ourselves, and it's not necessary to forgive another person, is because what they were doing that hurt you, they were doing it to themselves. They need to do self-forgiveness. But if you held on to the pain for what they've done or didn't do, then you need to forgive yourself for in that moment, for forgetting your value, for believing that their pain was your pain. Forgive yourself for holding on to it, and forgive yourself for not realizing how significant, valuable, and lovable you are. So we don't want to hold on to people's pain from the past, because that makes us very distrustful as adults. And yes, not everybody can be trusted because they have pain and they're going to project it onto you. But as you learn this more and more, and as you forgive easier and do it from a place of compassion and love, and you're not holding onto any childhood resentment, it will be a lot easier for you to come back to balance, back to your own center, and to be able to say, I have to forgive them because they don't know any better. But more importantly, I have to forgive myself for letting them hurt me, for believing that they had the power to do that. Because again, you had that moment of disempowerment, and really you're just being triggered from childhood. So your wise adult self knows this on a logical, analytical level, but you need to know it in a deep heart space where the real wisdom comes from, that when somebody hurts you in your now time as an adult, that they're coming from a place of hurt within themselves. If you feel resentful toward what they did or did not do, or say or did not say, then you might still have resentment from your childhood pain. And remember, as a child, that was your only weapon. It was your only power. So you didn't want to let it go. It was your only mechanism to feel powerful. And it doesn't work in your adult life, because it's only holding you back. It's limiting you from really stepping into that divine power and that truth of who you really are. But forgive your inner child. They had no choice. That was a survival mechanism. And as children, we have lots of survival mechanisms, because the most important thing to a child is to feel loved, to feel validated, to feel accepted, to feel significant, to feel loved. So when we don't feel that, we can have that resentment against the people that caused us to feel like we're not lovable, or we're not significant, or we're not valuable. And we can't let it go as a child, because it becomes not only a defense, but the anger behind it was not processed. So the anger turns into the resentment gets held on to, and then as an adult, we hold on to that resentment. So when somebody hurts us in our now time, we hold on to the resentment toward them now. And we have to learn how to go back to that heart space now that we're wiser, we're older, maybe we've done some inner work, some spiritual work, but there might just be that little bit of lingering resentment from childhood because it was a weapon for us. It's all we had. It was a resource. It's the only resource we could pull in, because we didn't have that wiser mind resources that actually come from learning, healing, experience, and coming into your adult self and understanding human behavior a lot more than you did as a child. So if there's people you need to release from the past because they didn't meet your needs, release them. They were coming from a place of pain. But please also keep in mind that a lot of times children think that somebody's hurting them intentionally. They're not, or they misperceived what the parent or the sibling were trying to teach them or show them. And that misperception can really turn into anger and resentment because we don't understand them. We don't understand that they're really coming from a place of love. And that can happen also. And now people have also asked me from my YouTube channel if I do Zoom healing work, and I do. So if you're not in the area of Long Island, New York, and you want to do some inner child work, shadow work, parts healing and integration, you want to heal those old resentments, you want to heal some patterns from the past, you want to change something, you want to better yourself in some way, you want to be in a more evolved space than you are right now, then probably there's some parts of you that need some deep healing. And yes, I do them on Zoom, and they're very powerful. They're really great. So, and that's all I have for you today, but I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your likes, your shares, always. And you go ahead and have a blessed day wherever you are in the world. Okay. Many blessings.